thing with this element that's allowing it to travel in an incredibly fast way. And when you listen to Commander David Fravor's depiction of that Tic Tac object, one of the things that's incredible is that they detected this object at more than 50,000 feet above sea level, and then it went from above 50,000 feet to 50 feet in less than a second, which is just bonkers. Like, who the fuck knows what could do that with no visual propulsion system, no visible, no understanding of like how this thing is moving around. But the fact that Bob Lazard was describing that actual method of propulsion back in the late 80s, it's trippy. I wish there was, if he's a liar, he's one of the best liars of all time. And what a great con he's been running, because he's been telling the exact same story the exact same way for more than 30 years. It's really crazy. And you don't know what to think. I mean, I talked to the guy, I had dinner with him, and then I talked to him on the podcast. And, you know, I like to think I have a fairly decent bullshit detector, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he's obviously a brilliant guy, a legitimate scientist, incredibly intelligent. And he would have been called out. And he kind of has about his education record, but he explained that to me. And I'll explain it to you afterwards, like what he told me that he doesn't want discussed publicly. But it's so strange that the way this guy was talking about these objects back in the late 80s is exactly how we're observing them behave today. And that he was saying that the United States government had these things in their possession and they were attempting to back engineer them. And they hired him, a propulsions expert, to try to figure them out. So that's element 115. So when you are watching this documentary and him explaining this and talking about Area S4, which is where he was supposedly working on these things, like what's your sense of that?
I try to stay agnostic in a sense, because I think probably like most people, like I want to believe it.
Yeah,
you know?
That's the
like,
problem.
It's super interesting. And a very deep part of me just was like, man, I want all of that to be true. It's super cool.
Yes.
And so in a sense, that's what kind of pushes me away from it, you know, because I don't have any tools to prevent that from taking over, right? Like I don't have any data or anything other than just that. But that's okay. That's what we've dealt with, I think, in the past. But, you know, I think and I believe and I hope that as we move forward, we're going to be dealing with this in a new way, right? It's going to be about planting flags and moving the conversation forward with data and science. And there's some, you know, another reason, again, this could be happening now is that there's just better tools, right? Our technology is getting better. We, in a sense, have, you know, another non-human intelligence on Earth with us right now, right? With our, you know, our advancement of machine learning and artificial intelligence, you know, that those tools might give us information, insight into these behaviors in a way that we wouldn't obviously put together, right? That's what ML does best. And so I see great promise for us having a better understanding of some of these mysteries, kind of when we bring in that tool to show us things that we just, you know, our brains aren't well suited to find those patterns.
So part of the problem with all this stuff is the fact that it's not openly discussed.
Yeah.
And I know that you were brought in for a hearing. No, was this in front of Congress? Is that what it was?
So, you know, way back when this kind of got kicked off, I had a private meeting with members of the Senate Armed Services Committee and Senate Select Committee on Intelligence.
And what was that like?
Pretty nerve-wracking. I mean, I was, you know, yeah. So, you know, it was funny. I volunteered to do this in a sense, and I was like, listen, I realize that, you know, I'm active duty right now. This is definitely not like, you know, I can't represent the Navy here or the military, right? I have to just try to speak as a citizen the best I can. So I was like, I'm not going to wear my uniform. I'm just going to go as, you know, as Ryan, not Lieutenant Graves, hopefully. And I ended up getting a call at like 9:30, 10 at night, the night before I was about to leave, essentially saying, get your uniform ready because you're now on orders to go up there to have that conversation, and you'll be in uniform. And this was like months before I'm like getting out of the Navy, so like my shit's all packed up, like I'm like calling friends at like, and some of the stuff I shipped back home already, like back up to New England. I'm in Mississippi at this time, so I'm calling my squadron mates at like 10, 11 at night, trying to like get uniform pieces to patch together. I'm like, oh shit. Here's the worst part, right? So I'm in there. There's, some very serious people in there. One of them is a former admiral, and now he's a staffer essentially. And like all the questions, and we're having the whole conversation. Near the end, he's like, so I noticed that you're missing a ribbon on your uniform. Because I had to have that rack right here, and there's one you get like every time you kind of leave a squadron. They're no big deal, but I didn't have it. It's just like the stores were closed. I couldn't get it in time. He's like, "Did you leave your squadron? Did you leave your squadron on a bad note?" Because I didn't have that medal.
Oh
I'm
no!
like, oh shit, no. But he was pretty cool about it. But yeah, that was probably the most
you have
stressful
to explain
part.
the whole thing that you didn't know you were coming in uniform.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I just told the story. I just told you.
Okay.
They loved it.
Well, I'm sure they were probably like thought it was funny that you were so nervous about it too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at a table, not unlike this one, but much bigger. And I'm, at the head of the table here, and on your side is like all the DoD folk and like executive branch representation. And I'm on the other side is all the SAS and Senate intelligence folks. And I got essentially walked over by a handful of admirals that were in various roles from that point. This was an unexpected part of my trip. I was supposed to just go talk to them, but part of me coming in uniform was that I needed to have a conversation at the Pentagon right prior to that.
To what to discuss and what not to?
No. At the time, it was just kind of like to get, a pre-brief, essentially, is how they described it. And that's all it was. There was nothing nefarious. They really just wanted to hear it from the horse's mouth, before they escorted me across the hill.
And what were the questions? Like, what was the nature of the discussion?
Which one?
When you sat down in front of everyone at the big table.
I mean, essentially, what's the story? What are you seeing? And not unlike, a lot of the things I told you about here, did people ridicule you? Did they, people tell you not to talk about it? There was a concern, it seemed like, from the non-DoD folks that they were wondering if there was any influence on me to, either downplay or not talk about it. And there was none, to be clear, but that was, they questioned me on that. But at the end of the day, it was essentially, they seemed earnestly, interested in getting to the bottom of what we were seeing out there. There seemed like they seemed to ask a lot of good questions that couldn't be answered at that space, in that classification level. So, they were having a follow-up conversation after I left. But that was really the